for Darren, right?
We are, yep. I hear him in there. In his office, let's see.
Well, maybe since he said he was going to be late, he's really
Yeah,
planning
you can start. Yeah, you can start.
I'll give it another minute or so. It's fine. 9 o'clock right now.
Marty, I remembered to record.
Oh, there we
Where's
go.
Anne?
Oh yeah, Anne's missing.
Anne's
Yeah, Anne's out on a family emergency.
Oh, okay.
So it
So
doesn't
who's
look
my lawyer?
you haven't because it doesn't look like it's recording. You haven't.
I show it on my end.
I show it recording on my end.
Oh,
I see it recording.
Me too. Mine's
Okay.
recording.
And
Usually
Lori, there's
Marty usually has to send me a text. Don't forget, hit record.
Lori, there's a raised hand in the attendees.
I see that.
Oh, Katie Hoffman is joining for Anne.
Oh,
Oh,
Trying
okay.
to join for
great,
Anne,
okay.
but she's having a problem.
Well, I'll promote her.
I'm not able to join the meeting as a participant. Okay.
Yeah, I have to promote her.
Okay, then I'll wait for that and then we'll get
There
started.
she is.
Katie,
Good morning.
Katie gets
Morning,
promoted.
Katie.
You've been promoted.
Yay. All right.
I was very worried about not having a lawyer.
I see
In case I could
Larry's
get public
hand
comment.
raised too.
it also looks like Darren is in as an attendee, needs to be promoted maybe.
There we go. Larry, do you have your hand raised? Larry, you're on mute. You had your hand raised.
No, it was a mistake. Sorry.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
Larry Harvey, AKA Chris Kringle.
COVID Kringle, sir.
Okay, are we good?
Yes.
Good to go? Good morning, Darren.
Morning, Madam Chair. Morning, everyone.
Advanced
Morning.
you to be a participant. All right, it's 9:02, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we will start with roll call, please.
Okay. Trustee Rose,
I am here.
Trustee Gianoli,
I am here.
Trustee Carasali,
Here.
and Trustee Jay.
I am here as well.
Great.
Do we have any public comment at this time?
We have no public comment.
Okay, then we will move to item number 3, approval of the minutes, the February 9th, 2021 minutes. Does anybody have any changes or concerns with those? If not, I can entertain a motion, please.
Richard J. to move to accept them as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that will take us to number 4.1, which is very long and is going to trust my reading skills and see if I need updated glasses or not, but I'm going to give it a shot. 4.1 is Board Memo number 2103-09, adoption of resolution number 550, rescinding resolution number 462, and authorizing the President, CEO, or authorized representative to approve construction contracts and change orders, professional services agreements and amendments, purchases of goods, materials, supplies, equipment, technical services, and maintenance contracts equal to or less than $100,000, including all change orders, all budgeted construction contracts exceeding $250,000, professional service agreements exceeding $50,000, and purchases of goods, materials, supplies, equipment, technical services, and maintenance contracts exceeding $100,000 must be approved by the Board of Trustees, recognizing inherent authority of President, CEO, and authorizing President, CEO, or authorized representative to approve all revenue contracts except those that are in combination more than 4 years in term, including options and generate aggregate revenues of 100,000 or more. And I believe Ms. Holly Luna is going to speak with us about this today.
Good morning. Everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'll go ahead and share my screen with you. Can you see the screen?
We
Yep.
can. Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you. Good morning, chairs, trustees, Mr. Griffin. For the record, Holly Luna, Manager of Purchasing Materials Management. I'm presenting resolution number 550. I think I might have the record for the longest title. I apologize, Ms. Rose, for that. As you may recall, this item was brought to you approximately a year ago. Staff was requested to review and revise it, bring it back to the board for further consideration. And as we go through the presentation today, I'll point out the differences between last year's requests and this year's recommendation. Also, as a reminder, I have an ongoing initiative in purchasing to create a process and procedure manual. Staff has been reviewing both written documentation in the form of the Nevada revised statutes and the Nevada administrative code, which includes recent legislative changes, board regulations such as the resolution 462, some internal written policies and memos, unwritten practices and procedures. Further, I've had a number of internal stakeholder informational sessions to understand what the current processes are, what is working, what is not working. And the end result is that staff wants to produce a process and procedure manual that captures the intent of board direction while aligning with any statutory or legal requirements, but also to ensure that prescriptive language is easy to read and understand. That leads me to the current board resolution number 462, which governs the board approved signatory authorization. Signatory authorization is an essential building block upon which many other purchasing procedures are derived. As I move through the sections of the resolution, both current and proposed, I have attempted to keep tally of the items to be revised versus keeping the items intact. You'll see these notes in the parentheses behind the item in discussion. As you know, resolution 462 has not been revisited in some time. It was approved in January of 2006. With regards to NRS, many things have come and gone in the last 15 years. Calculated inflation from 2006 to current is over 29%. State statutes and administrative code have been revised multiple times since 2006, and almost every legislative session results in changes to either NRS Chapter 332, which is called the Local Government Purchasing Act, and or to Chapter 338, which is the Public Works Chapter. Both of these chapters govern much of what I must comply with in purchasing. However, not all of the items referenced in the resolution are required by both statutes. But for simplicity's sake, it's easiest to set a standard that meets all of the requirements, regardless of which statute is in question. Resolution 462 does reference certain items that we need to ensure we continue to address in the new resolution if approved. One is that NRS 332 requires that the board designate a chief administrative officer. Competitive solicitations, both chapters currently require formal solicitations at 100,000, but the current resolution references a too restrictive bar of 25. This is one requirement that certainly has varied over multiple legislative sessions. It's actually probably touched almost every single legislative session. Exemptions to formal solicitations are provided in both chapters, but are very explicit and stringent as to what be classified as an exception. And the current resolution only lists professional services. I'll get more into this a little bit later. Also, when talking about this all other category, the current resolution only mentions goods, services, materials, and supplies. However, it doesn't mention equipment or explicitly reference technical services or maintenance contracts, and we really need to make sure we're enveloping all of those. The monthly submittal to the board listing contracts, which we refer to as the Administrative Award of Contract or AAOC, that's obviously included in today's meeting. We provide that on a monthly basis to the Financial Committee. But the current resolution doesn't really provide many guiding details for that report. And for reference, the statutorial requirement resides in NRS 338 only, the Public Works Chapter. Additionally, the current resolution is silent on the President CEO signature authority for revenue contracts, and I'll get to that more in just a minute. With regards to the specific of signatory authorization, the resolution has been clear with regards to the level of each type of contract. For instance, construction is anything that's less than or equal to 100,000. We're going to ask to revise that. The PSA less than or equal to 50,000. We're going to actually keep that level. And then the all other category is less than or equal to 100,000. However, what's been less clear and what staff has struggled with is the lack of clarity over the ability to authorize change orders and amendments. Currently, the verbiage for change orders on construction contracts reads in the current resolution, authorized to approve contract change orders on construction projects where the total net cost of a single change order does not increase the contract sum by more than 100,000. There is no discussion in that resolution language on limits to the number of change orders, and some confusion exists as to the interpretation of how to apply that rule when there's multiple change orders. The verbiage for the amendments on PSAs reads very similarly. Again, there are no explicit instructions with regards to the limit of the number of amendments and how we should apply that rule when there are multiple amendments. I've only been in my present position at the airport for just over 3 years, and the resolution has been in place since 2006. So I looked at the precedent and history to attempt to resolve my questions and found that historically, the resolution was interpreted to mean that multiple change orders amendments can be issued with no limit. And again, there is no stated language in the resolution that conflicts with the interpretation of limitless authorization of change orders or amendments. An example could be that there's an originating contract for $25,000 for professional services, but because the original contract was less than $50,000, the president and CEO would be authorized to sign. And if an extension was needed due to increased scope, an amendment to the PSA, let's say $35,000, it could also be approved. And if another extension was also requested, we could continue in this fashion without limit due to the language in the current resolution. And the same process of review and approval can be said for construction contracts and change orders. Additionally, there's no stated language with regards to change orders or amendments when the board specifically approves the originating contract. In other words, it's not administratively awarded, the board reviews and approves it. What happens to those change orders and amendments? The resolution is silent on all of those questions. And again, the current resolution is silent with regards to the signature authority as it relates to revenue contracts. Based on these questions, as well as the need for clarification as we create the procedural manual, I've prepared the revised solution for your review today. So I want to jump into the details of the proposed resolution, and it's easiest probably to start with some of the more, the less complicated factors. And if anybody has any questions about each of these sections, I can point you to the resolution section that this aligns with. But the new resolution better defines the all other category. It's going to also include equipment, technical services, and maintenance contracts, which were excluded before. Additionally, we want to align with NRS with regards to the both chapters 332 and 338, which change almost every legislative session. There's several sections of the resolution that are aligned with limits set by NRS for competitive solicitation and exemptions, not by giving a set dollar amount, which is likely to change and has frequently, but by referencing the requirement of the statute and to be in compliance, regardless of how the statute may change from legislative session to legislative session. Also, NRS 332 provides a number of items that give certain parameters which are exempt from competitive bidding. The new resolution reflects that language. And I wanted to provide a couple of examples because they're coming to the board today utilizing this exemption. In NRS 332.115, there are contracts that are not adapted to award by competitive solicitation. One is professional services, and then there's one that would apply more to maintenance type contracts. Those could be items that are contracted only from a sole source, meaning it's proprietary. Also, there are additions to repairs and maintenance of equipment, which may be more efficiently added to, repaired, or maintained by employees, personnel. And then equipment, which by reason of training of the personnel or inventory of replacement parts, that's compatible with the existing equipment. So there's very explicit reasons why you would not go into a competitive solicitation for these types of things. And the other frequently revisited is the discussion with regards to hardware and associated peripheral equipment and devices for computers. Also, it excludes the software for computers, maintenance and support for hardware and associated peripheral equipment, software for computers, and equipment containing hardware or software for computers. So it's a pretty lengthy example of how we would utilize these statutorily permitted exemptions, but they're very important and there's reasons why they are exempted. Additionally, the new resolution provides guidance as to the floor or the base for the requirement of reporting to the board, meaning that all purchases, contracts, or PSAs would be reported via the monthly AAOC if the amount were equal to or greater than $25,000. Basically, what's happening right now is because there's no floor, in theory, we should probably be reporting everything, and that obviously would become very labor intensive, and you wouldn't see the forest for the trees with that. So the requirement to report on contracts administratively comes from 338, and it is associated with public works, but it would just be appropriate to set the same parameters regardless of the award type. So I've recommended and proposed in the new resolution that all change orders and amendments are reported regardless of the amount. And what this does is this allows for transparency and consistency. As previously mentioned, I'd had discussions with multiple stakeholders regarding the proposed changes, and clearly much in the world has changed over the past 15 years. Costs have continued to climb and have been compounded by inflation. And more specifically, the construction industry has seen intense acceleration locally. There needs to be a balance, however, between the board-approved controls for signature authority, meaning don't give away too much of the board's authority, with the much-needed ability to be flexible and agile in the operating of the day-to-day business of the airport. And this even becomes more critical when it comes to construction. So collectively, if the new resolution were approved, it would be a sweeping overhaul to eliminate the ad infinitum ability of change orders. In discussions with internal stakeholders, no matter where the line is drawn, we need more explicit instructions that are clear and indicative of approved board authority for future contracts and change orders. So as a result, the give, if you will, in the language is that the initial contract cost as a baseline would increase. We're requesting the change move from 100,000 to a 250,000 limit. However, the tightening of authority comes in the removal of the ability to issue the ongoing change orders. Additionally, there'll be a new process introduced with regards to construction contract approvals. This is a standard process with other public entities, and it's one I'm familiar with, and it's called an owner's contingency. With board approval of a construction contract, there will also be a request for a contingency, and no additional change orders can be issued without board approval on these types of contracts. Again, strong language is required, providing required board approval for anything that exceeds these limits. These parameters and controls pertaining to the construction contracts and change orders are provided in sections 3 and 4 of the resolution. And I'll walk you through specific examples where you can understand the relevance. Here's some examples. So for instance, if the board was to be reviewing a construction contract for $2.5 million, staff would also bring in front of you a requested contingency amount. So here's an estimated contingency amount of about 10%. It's pretty standard in construction contracts to have a contingency amount, and that's what we're proposing for this resolution. So what would happen is you would have, a board approved construction contract of $2.5 million. Staff would also request a contingency amount. And then as staff were to go through and the construction would be moving forward, there might be contingency change orders that are required. And what I've done is I've shown you an example here that within this 250,000 contingency amount that would also be approved by the board, staff would be able to move forward with these two contingency change orders. And cumulatively, that would equate to 200,000. Once they get to this one down here, which in theory is a $55,000 one, it exceeds this contingency amount that was approved by the board. And so you'd have to come back as staff to the board for this next action item. Alternatively, if you had a staff approved contract, because this is less than that 250,000 amount, you could have a construction contract of 175, and cumulatively we would have the authority as staff to approve change orders. So again, they could approve the first change order and the second change order, which cumulatively takes you to 85,000. But once you reach this change order, it cumulatively exceeds that 100,000 limit. And then this would also require board action. Likewise, went the same conversation with stakeholders for the PSAs. And again, I'll provide some examples in the next slide. The language in the resolution retains the signature authority level at 50,000. There had been a discussion last year. We had when we had brought this before you, had been a request to move this from 50 to 100,000. And we went back and looked, and there just wasn't a business case for, there's honestly not that many PSAs that have been requested that exceed the 50,000 and are in that between that 50 and 100,000. So what does happen though is we are requesting tightening of authority when it comes to the removal of the ability to issue the ongoing amendments. So I did want to point out that the all other category remains unchanged with respect to signature authority, but I did add language to make it clear on how to deal with the change orders with those. And I also, as I'd already indicated, I'd clarified the language so that the definition is broadened, as I've already discussed. So again, unequivocally, there's a requirement to return to the board for anything that exceeds these limits. And these particular parameters and controls are provided in sections 4 and 5 of the resolution. So for a couple of examples, in this, we had a board approved contract for the PSA that was, say, at 99,000. And if there were amendments to that contract, these two amendments staff would be able to proceed with because they do not exceed a $50,000 limit cumulatively. But once you approach this third amendment, it would take you over that 50,000 and it would require board action. Similarly, if you had a staff approved contract that was the PSA that's less than or equal to 50,000, staff could continue to accumulate amendments up to this point where it reached the 50,000. But once it goes to this third amendment, it would require board action. And then moving into the new portion of the proposed resolution, which has to do with revenue contracts. The current resolution, it's silent with respects to signature authority. And Mr. Griffin would like to clarify the parameters of what he or his designation is authorized to execute. So the current practice is that staff brings revenue contracts to the board when they exceed 100,000 with only the initial term. The options are at the RTA sole discretion and they're not guaranteed. So practically speaking, options were treated as new leases. So for example, an $80,000 lease for 5 years with 2 5-year extensions, the CEO in the past has approved or his designee. And what we're asking for now in the resolution is that we want clarification. We want to have the president or his approved designee to approve all contracts except those that are in combination are more than 5 years in term, including all options. And then there's the and that and is important. It needs to be both, which is and generate aggregate revenue of 100,000 or more. And again, anything above this requires board approval. And then likewise to what I currently provide for the AAOCs, the Administrative Award of Contract, Airport Economic Development will provide something similar in that nature to the board for their review. So again, some examples here. If this were a board approved contract with a revenue contract, it matches this and piece, which is the 100,000 and greater than 5 years. So this would come to the board for approval. And just by the very nature of this, because this was already board approved, this must also require board approval because it's the and it's greater than 100,000 and exceeds 5 years. However, in something like this, you could have a staff approved contract where the revenue contract is 50,000 and 10 years. And so staff could go through and approve this. And then with all of these amendments and options, you would get up to this point, and here we would finally exceed the and, which would exceed the 100,000, and it would exceed 5 years. So in this case, this particular amendment would require board action. So while the president and CEO may have the authority to execute a construction contract or the PSA or revenue within these board resolution parameters, nothing prohibits staff, however, from bringing an item to the full board for review and approval. While there is no anticipated fiscal impact as a result of this action, there is anticipated greater clarity and instruction to staff on how to conduct business, and it provides me better guidance and footing as I continue writing the process and procedural manual. Further resolution as proposed has built in greater flexibility and agility on the front end to answer the day-to-day business operations, especially when it comes to construction, but with a very clear demarcation and limiting that authorization on change orders and or amendments, and with any item that exceeds those limits requires review and approval by the board. Staff did do some polling of airports and airport authorities. We had received feedback on those various entities with regards to their current structure and authority limits. Several authorities, which are not airports as an arm of a municipality, but authorities that are like us, reported similar limits with construction at 250 and PSAs at 100K, such as Columbus Regional, Norfolk, and Tucson. Others, like McCarran, which we obviously cannot compare ourselves to, there was 100,000 for PSAs, 500,000 for PSAs associated with construction contracts, and $1 million specifically for construction. Likewise, a small airport like Spokane had a limit of 50,000. And then even checking among other local agencies, the authority varies from agency to agency. Unlike Chair Rose, I'm not going to request reading of the recommendation. You have it in front of you. And at this point, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Holly, that was great. So when I read it yesterday, I had some questions, but your presentation was so thorough, and you took all of that language and made it super easy to follow and understand. So I don't actually have any questions at this point, except my statement would be, it is not fair that I had to read it and you did not have to read it. So but I think Trustee Giannoli has a question.
Yeah, I don't really have a question. I just want to say the same thing, Holly, having your fresh eyes and Darren there and looking at this and comparing and all the work you did to bring it up to current statutory requirement and just efficiency of operating an airport. I really appreciate it. We still get the administrative report, so we see what's happening and for the things that are significant. So I'm very comfortable with it, and I appreciate the time and energy you put into that.
Thank you.
I have a quick comment.
Jay, do you have comments?
Yeah, just no questions, comment, great presentation. Very detailed. I understand a lot better. I just think I feel that, the Chair Roche, she should read it verbatim before we go through it. No, I'm just kidding, but good job. Thank you. And I'll move that we accept the, can we?
I can't see Trustee Caroselli, so I'll just ask real quick. Trustee Caroselli, do you have anything you want to say before we move to motions?
No, great presentation by Holly, and I think it's great moving forward.
Yep, I would agree. Okay, Trustee Jay, did you make a motion? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, Richard J., I make the motion to accept the proposal as presented to us without reading the entire motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, Holly.
Welcome.
All right, we are going to move right on to 4.2. It's short and sweet. Board Memo 2103-10, authorization to submit passenger facility charge application 21-15-C-00-RNO in the amount of $16,806,800 to construct or acquire various capital assets for the Reno Tahoe International Airport, and I believe we are going to hear from Alex.
Good morning, Madam Chair, trustees. Can you first of all hear me okay?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm pulling up my screen right now.
No worries.
Can you please confirm that you can all see my screen?
I can see it just fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
For the record, Alex Kovac, Manager of Finance, with the presentation on the proposed PFC application number 15. I would also like to introduce Mr. Chris Cobb, who's on the call in case you have any specific questions on the two projects that are included in the proposed PFC 15. I would like to start off with a little bit of background on what the PFC particular rules are and how much are we able to collect. So first of all, PFC stands for Passenger Facility Charges. The maximum amount of PFCs that we can collect per in-plane passenger is $4.50. This is collected by commercial airlines, and they also have the ability to retain 11 cents per the $4.50 for administrative fees. The usage of PFC charges is limited to the FAA pre-approved projects. These are related to safety, security, environment, or increased capacity. We have the ability to fund pay-as-you-go projects. I love that term, the pay-as-you-go, very sophisticated term. It can also be used to finance projects, so we can pay debt service with the PFCs. During last fiscal year, the RTA collected approximately 7.1 million in PFC revenues. Just to give you a sense of how that compares to a normal year, as we all know, we were affected by the pandemic, less in-plane passengers. The prior year, we collected approximately 8 million, and the current year, we're forecasting to collect approximately 3.5 million. Since the inception of the PFC program here at RTAA in 1994, we have collected approximately 2.7 million in total PFC revenues. The purpose of the PFC application is to have the ability to continue the flow of PFC revenue and to fund FAA-approved capital projects. Without the FAA approval, the collection of the PFC collections must be stopped. Each one of these applications must be started, or the projects, I should say, that are included in a PFC application must be started within 2 years and completed within 5. Upon approval from the FAA, PFC number 15, PFC application number 15 will give us the authority to collect PFCs through the end of December 31st, 2024. This period seems a little bit longer than we have used in the prior years, but not knowing exactly how our traffic is going to perform, I extended the period of collections a little bit. There are 2 projects included in the proposed PFC application 15, and both of these will sound somewhat familiar to you. This presentation was in front of you on June 9th. When it was approved by the board, we went forward with the draft application to the FAA. However, due to the time that the environmental review process took on the FAA's part, we had to restart the public review process. And that's the reason we're in front of you today with the proposed PFC 15. The first project that is included in the application is the Terminal Roadway project. This is to reconstruct approximately 1,600 feet of the loop road concrete segment. This will address ADA requirements, improve pedestrian safety, and install some security bollards. The total cost of the project is estimated at 13.9 million, Approximately 12.3 of that is specifically for construction. To give you a sense of kind of where is this project that we're talking about, this is the red rectangle that you see here in front of you, specifically just the concrete portion of the loop road. It will pay for security enhancements. Those are the ballers that I just mentioned. A new cut-through crosswalk at the surface lot, and add some ADA compliant drop-off and pickup lanes. We will also add some solar crosswalk signs and radar speed signs. The next project proposed to be included in PFC 15 is Escalator Refurbishment. This is a total of 4 escalators, and they're located, as you have gone through the terminal building here. 2 of them are heading up from the TSA checkpoint, and the other 2 are at the arrival area. The total cost is estimated at $2.9 million. This includes programming, design, and the installation or construction of the escalators. So the 2 escalators that you see here on the left-hand side, these are the ones that head up from the TSA checkpoint, and the other 2 on the right-hand side are the arrival escalators. Now, before I move on to the fiscal impact, do you have any specific questions on some of these projects?
I don't see any questions, Alex. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I would like to talk about the fiscal impact a little bit. Currently, we have 3 PFC applications open, 12, 13, and 14. Those 3, just to give you a sense, they total approximately $42.1 million. The new PFC application 15, that includes the 2 projects I just described, is $16.8 million. That will bring us to a total of open PFC applications for approximately $59 million. Expenditures that we occurred as of December 31st, 2020, approximately $24.7 million, and with the remaining $34.3 million, including the proposed PFC 15. We do have $17.1 million in the bank, and that would give us an additional collection authority for $17.1 million to reach the total of $59 million. Some of the next steps is to submit the proposed PFC 15 for board approval on Thursday. Once we receive board approval, we will submit the formal application to the FAA. We're expecting a record of decision from the FAA within 30 days. Normally, as you see here on the slide, it would take 120 days. However, we're pursuing a streamlined 30-day approval process. Once we have that approval from the FAA, we will send a collection notice to the airlines, and we can start collecting effective 30 days after the FAA's record of decision. With that, here are with the recommendation, slightly shorter than Holly's, so I will attempt to read this. Authorize the President and CEO to submit PFC application 21-15-C-00-RNO in the amount of $16,806,800 to construct, acquire various capital assets for the Reno Tahoe International Airport. And with that, Madam Chair, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I see that Trustee Jay has a question. Don't forget to unmute.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Great presentation. I think it's great. You're talking about the 30 days, normally 120. Do you feel fairly comfortable with that, given the fact that we're seeing so much delays in everything, given the number of people working from home and COVID and everything? Do you feel comfortable with that 30-day number?
That's an excellent question. Actually, yes, I do. We have been in contact with the FAA. They currently have the draft application in front of them to review, and we are expecting any comments by the 18th of the current month based on the draft application. As soon as we have those, we will submit the official application.
Great. Thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Trustee Giannoli or Trustee Caroselli?
No, good presentation, and looks like you've got it all together, given all the delays we've had and the craziness in the world.
Great
Hopefully it all
presentation,
goes-
Alex, and no questions.
Thank you.
Pretty straightforward. Would someone like to make a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Thank
Second.
you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving right along. We are on 4.3, Board Memo 2103-11, authorization for the President CEO to purchase computer networking hardware and associated installation services from IP Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $239,850.28. Exempt from competitive bidding pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute 332.115 for the sole source procurement of computing hardware and associated peripherals. And I believe we are going to hear from Mr. Marty Mueller.
Good
Come
morning.
on down.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Presentation. Good morning, Chair Rose, trustees, Mr. Griffin, Marty Mueller, Chief Information Officer. This item is for the replacement of something that we call a security systems network. And it would authorize the President CEO to purchase computer networking hardware and associated installation services from IP Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $239,850.28 for the replacement of the security systems network, exempt from competitive bidding pursuant to Nevada Revised Statutes 332.115G for the sole source procurement of computing hardware and associated peripherals. This supports RTA's fiscal year 2019 through 2023 strategic priorities number 3, facilities for the future, and number 4, safety and security. Little background on what the security systems network is. We actually have two large digital communication networks here. One supports our corporate and business systems, and the other supports our security systems. They're intentionally separate for security reasons. And this security systems network is the infrastructure supporting all of our security systems at the RTA and all of its properties. Among other things, it supports 320 access control doors. You see a picture there of a biometric access control door reader. You've probably encountered those at our many doors. And the system that supports those is a network that interconnects them all. Also supports 415 security surveillance cameras. There's one representative pictured there. You see those sprinkled throughout the facility. If you look up at the ceiling anywhere in the building, you'll see these dotting the facility. Behind the scenes, less visible, are redundant digital video storage archives. These retain the surveillance video in digital format for review and the production of exhibits. It also supports a number of video and access control monitoring stations. Those are located in AirCom, in the TSA areas, in our security offices. And this is where personnel can view video surveillance footage. They can also view alarms on access control doors and clear alarms and etc. All of this is required by the federal government in something called an Airport Security Plan, or an ASP. And this hardware supporting all of this was installed in 2010. So we're entering our 11th year of service. It has an anticipated life of 5 to 7 years, so we've gotten our money's worth out of it. It's no longer manufactured or available as spares from the manufacturer, and so we're maintaining this on what we call a gray market basis, where we purchase equipment that other companies have surplus and it's been refurbished, and then we use that equipment to maintain ours. It's working, but not ideal, and it's time to replace this important system. Technically, what it actually is a redundant set of core switches. Those are located in computer rooms. They're the central communicating facility, and they are interconnected to 36 edge switches, which reside in communication and equipment closets throughout our campus of buildings. They are interconnected with fiber optic cabling in a what you might call a hub and spoke architecture. There's an example in the upper right corner there, somewhat unattractive piece of equipment. That's a core switch. The existing equipment was manufactured by Hewlett Packard, and it served us well, but Hewlett Packard is no longer in that line of service. Since the 11 years ago when this was implemented, the larger network and as an organization, we've standardized on networking technologies by a company called Extreme Networks, Inc. And we desire now, anytime we replace equipment, to replace it with equipment that's compatible. We are proposing that, and I have a picture here, still unattractive, but it is purple now. We're proposing that this be provided and installed by a company called IP Solutions. They're an authorized Extreme business channel partner. They're a diamond level partner, and they're recommended by Extreme for installations of our size and complexity within our geographic region. The reason that we want to consolidate, and we are consolidating all of our network technology to one vendor, so it carries a number of benefits, primarily for reasons of compatibility, that when all of our networks are based on the same technology from the same vendor, it makes it easier to interconnect them. It also reduces our maintenance and support costs, and our spare parts inventories can be smaller. It provides for seamless network monitoring and control. So there's software that can look at all of this, and from a desktop, we can view the functioning of all of our networks if they are all based on the same technology. It also simplifies staff training requirements. This is all consistent with NRS 332.115G, as Holly mentioned in her presentation, which provides for the sole source acquisition of computer hardware and peripherals. The fiscal impact, originally, when we conceived of this project, I asked for $700,000. That was pre-COVID, not just for the replacement of the system that we have now, but expanding it to have system-wide redundancy. We currently enjoy only redundancy at the core, which is the most important part, but I had proposed to expand that to have redundancy at the edge. Post-COVID, we reduced the scope of that to simply replace like in kind. So we would be replacing the core redundant switches and the edge switches, and that we would defer the full system redundancy until funding becomes available. This $350,000 was approved at the May 21st meeting of the board, where they approved the FY 2021 budget. And it is to be purchased without competitive bidding as per NRS 332.115G. The costs associated with this project, the first line item there is this action item that we're discussing today. That's the hardware, and a smaller amount for installation. That totals $239,850. In addition to that, there will be some fiber optic interface modules and patch cables that need to be replaced. In the computer room, there may be some equipment racking and minor electrical modifications if we don't have outlets in the right place. et cetera. And as we visit each of those 36 remote equipment closets, there may be some minor electrical modifications there. There is a project contingency of 10%. All of those costs, except the first one, will be expended on an as-needed basis and under the signing authority of the CEO. It is hereby recommended that the board adopt the following motion. It's been read a few times, so unless you want, I won't read it again to you there. And Madam Chair, happy to answer any questions that you might have now.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, then IP Solutions is the VAR and Extreme is the manufacturer, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So, and it's okay if there is one and you didn't choose them, but just out of sheer curiosity, was there an IP VAR in Northern Nevada, or was, was there an Extreme VAR in Northern Nevada, or was IP the closest one, or just the best one, or what was the
best one? We asked Extreme, based on the size and the complexity of this work, who they would recommend in our region for us, and they recommended IP Solutions. So they're the VAR of choice for us in this region.
And they're pretty close, actually. They're not that far away. Okay, awesome. Does anyone else have any questions?
No, I guess we just are lucky we got into the 11th year with that kind of equipment.
Yeah.
That's kind of unusual when you're talking about technology.
Yeah, totally. Trustee Jay, anything from you?
No, great presentation. I agree. You know, we seem to do a really good job in pushing, whether it's a fire truck or a water truck or a painting machine, whatever, pushing as much out of that piece of machinery or equipment that we can. So good job here. But I agree, we've got to make sure we have the best technology and going forward. So great job.
Yeah, that's great. Trustee Caroselli, you have anything?
Great work, great presentation, Marty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion?
So
Richard
moved.
J. Okay, there you go. I'll second.
Motion made by Trustee Caroselli, second by Trustee Jay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion also carries unanimously.
Thank you, Marty.
So we are on, yes, thank you, Marty, very much. We are on item number 5.1, technology modernization update. This is an item for discussion and or possible action. And I believe we have a update from Art.
Yeah, good morning, Chair Rose. Just confirm that you can hear me okay.
I can hear you, thank you.
You're fine.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair Rose. Trustees, Mr. Griffin. For the record, my name is Art Ramp, Manager of IT. I've been asked to present an update on technology and financial system modernization. And this is informational only. So I'll start with the technology modernization. We started with our productivity software last fall and upgraded our Microsoft Office and email applications. And you can see there we completed our upgrade from Office 2010 to Microsoft 365 in November. And we did our email migration and completed it in December. Also using M365, we're on the most current versions of Office and email, which provides the best security and productive use of the softwares. I want to recognize the IT team, Jeff Longacre, Joel Blanco-Flor, Jim Liu, Nick Hassler, and Thomas McKay for their efforts in doing that in such a short time frame. As you can see, we've got a small team and converted over 280 users in a very short time frame. So it's a great work by them. And then after the board approved the purchase of the replacement hardware in November, we ordered the equipment, received it at the end of January, and started implementation of that equipment. And you can see the quotes from some of the people here. One of them is, I like that bottom one. Thank you all for the new computer system. What a huge difference this has made. Working from home via remote access was often a very frustrating experience, not anymore. And that was another one of those situations where we were into the 9th, 10th, 11th year of using equipment, the desktop computers and things. And so it made a real difference for people to upgrade that. So we appreciate the board's support on that. And also I want to recognize Bruce Lightfoot on the replacement of that equipment. He's the project manager working on that, and the whole organization for the flexibility that they've shown to work with us to replace that equipment. We've completed about 80 of the 220 plus computers at this point. We expect to have that all completed. We're pushing for the end of March, but it may move into April. Here's a typical setup. I had shown you pictures before during the presentation to approve the purchase, but this is what it looks like. This is the computer on the left here is a video conferencing monitor. It has a camera and microphone built in and speakers, wireless keyboard and mouse, docking station, and a laptop. So this is the typical laptop user. And then this is the desktop users. Same type of setup. The computer on the left has the monitor, or the monitor has the camera and microphone and speakers, wireless keyboard and mouse. And then behind this, the video conferencing monitor is where the computer mounts. So it's very compact, no more big computer on either on the desk or on the floor. Oh, and then I might also mention that we did replace UPSs also to ensure against electrical surges and things with the computers. On moving on to cybersecurity modernization, things we've done there. In January, we implemented multi-factor authentication, and that increases our cybersecurity. It's similar to what banking and other websites use. So when a user attempts to log in from a location outside the RTAA computer network, they're prompted for an additional security factor. It's called a challenge, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with that, where you get a text and you have to put a number in. So the code could come from either an authenticator app that's on a smartphone, a code from a text message, a phone call that would come to a predetermined phone number. And once you enter that code, then you're authorized onto the network. This security measure reduces the potential of a third party being able to access an RTA user account from a remote location. We also upgraded our VPN network, split the virtual private network functionality separate from our firewall, which improves performance. And then we have plans in place to upgrade our firewall and our Wi-Fi for the entire airport terminal and before the end of the fiscal year. So are there any questions about the technology piece before I move on to the financial systems? Okay, great. Just as a quick reminder, last December, the board approved some funding for the project called Abrm, the Airport IQ Business and Revenue Management System. And that supported that made that third leg of the stool for the modernization of our financial systems. And the other two legs being HCM, the Human Capital Management, that's the HR systems, and the ERP, electronic or enterprise resource planning, which is the GL, accounts receivable, accounts payable, fixed assets, purchasing, all of those systems. So briefly on the HCM system, the human resource system, the self-service portal went live last July, and we implemented electronic timesheets in November with CSP and management. Police just went live March 1st with electronic timesheets, and Teamsters are scheduled for May and fire scheduled for July. And at that point, we'll have everybody on electronic timesheets. So we're at about 50% of that project right now. And there's a team, a very small team that's working in the background, but a great team, Julie Sternberg, Gina Castellar, and Renee Gasady. Julie's from HR, Gina's from payroll, and Renee is from IT. They've been doing a great job working with departments and getting the rules built to do electronic time cards. it's not as easy as you'd think it would be. So we really appreciate the efforts from those three. Moving on to the Tyler Munis system. The implementation's about 33%, actually it's probably a little further along than that. This was approved by the board last March or April, and the implementation began soon after, and it's the anticipated go live for it, well, not anticipated, the go live is scheduled for July 1st of this year to coincide with their new fiscal year. And project manager on that is Holly Luna, and there's a great team that's working on that. So, and that's a huge effort to convert financial systems, I'm sure, as you all know. And then the last system is the Abrm system, which the board approved just a few months ago. We started implementation in January, and the vendor has begun conversion of our current data and build out a new environment for us over the next couple of months. We expect to do user acceptance testing sometime around the June timeframe, and user training in July, with the go live anticipated to be in September. We're doing this in timing it with the Munis financial system upgrade for July 1. We probably could do it a little bit sooner, but we decided it would be better to keep those two systems separate so that we don't the revenue system separate from the GL system, so that we don't overwhelm people with too many changes all at once. And Renee Gassadi's the project manager on this one, working with all of the airport departments. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I was just going to
Thank you
make one
very
quick,
Go
Chair
ahead,
Rose,
Trustee Jay.
quick comment. That system you use for the laptops, that's what we use here at work at Wells Fargo. Fantastic. It's a great system. I have my two monitors here. I can take my laptop home. I got two monitors at home. It plugs in fast. It works efficiently. So I'm very pleased that, you know, and I can say, using the system for a year now, fantastic. So good job.
Great, great.
I love that you included comments from the users and how happy they are to have the upgraded system. That's fun.
I just have a quick question. Art, you mentioned the fact that the electronic time sheets, you were still working through that. Just from that can be a tricky process, how those get approved. And I know, having gone through this in another life, that's good. You're putting a lot of energy into that. And I know, having your team set with your subject matter experts too, that's the way you get the best end result. So I appreciate that. It's a big undertaking.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Gianelli.
Great job.
You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't. As leaders, sometimes leaders don't get recognized for the efforts, but I need to recognize Marty Mueller and Randy Carlton for their support. You know, without that, you know, it's difficult to get things done sometimes. But we really appreciate the support from Marty and from Randy. So thank you.
I'd like to pass that up one level to Darren. He comes from an environment and of a mindset that's very favorable to technology and modernizing it and working remotely, and that is so important to have that upper level support. Makes it so much easier. So thank you to Darren on that.
Sounds like the four of you are quite a team. Yes, Darren,
Well,
go ahead.
thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to commend this team. Any of these projects that Art has talked about by themselves would be a big lift. And the fact that all of them are occurring basically simultaneously in this organization is an extremely heavy lift. And it's a heavy lift for the entire organization, because we have a lot of employees trying to learn multiple new systems while keeping up with the business tempo, right? You still got to keep the doors open. We got deals we're trying to do. We're trying to work in parallel on systems. It's a tremendous amount of pressure, and we've been on the verge of tipping a few times, has been my sense, but we always regain our balance just in time, and we continue moving forward. It is transformational. When we come out of this, we will be so well equipped for working from wherever we are. From a cybersecurity perspective, I can't overemphasize how important that is. We read about this stuff every day now, of organizations under attack, and we've been under attack. We don't talk about it because it's almost just automatic now everywhere, but our ability to build in the resiliency, and protections really are going to be transformational for the organization. So all credit to those that helped to get us here with the approvals and the strategic vision. And now all credit to all the staff trying to learn all of this and figure out how to make these systems work from a laptop from home or wherever they are. But we are making tremendous progress, and I'm just really pleased for the whole organization and the work that Marty and Art are doing here, spearheading this. So thank you for everybody's work on this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that comment. I will say also that just throughout this whole pandemic, you know, the entire team at the airport has been really amazing, and all the changes in the business environments, and it's just incredible how the whole team at the airport really came together and worked together and welcomed Darren as the new person in charge. And, you know, clearly everyone works really well together, and it's very, very impressive. So thank you all very much. All right, guys, we are going to move. Thank you, Art, for that presentation. That brings us to number 6, member comments, questions, and requests for future agenda items. Does anyone have anything? No? I know we are encroaching on Trustee Sperber's 10 o'clock meeting, so I'm going to just quickly ask on number 7, the monthly administrative reports that were provided for your reference. Does anybody have any questions or comments they would like to make regarding those reports? No? Okay. That takes us to public comment. Do
We have no public comment. No public
Fantastic. If Lori, if you could let Art back in just so we could decide when.
He's
we're
here.
gonna- Okay, we're going to adjourn this meeting now. And then if Trustee Sperber can just let us know what time he wants to start the planning meeting.
Yeah, thanks for letting me back in. Yeah, let's start in about 10 minutes. Let's start at 20 after, give everybody a few minute break in between. That's okay. I think staff will be ready.
Quick question, Lori. I don't believe I have a link or an email for the planning meeting.
I sent one out. I sent one out, and then the Zoom will also send you a reminder an hour before.
Okay, and that's what I'm looking. I got that on finance, but I didn't get it on.
It probably came in. It probably came in at 8. Well, yeah, you should have gotten it at about 9
I got
o'clock.
I got the 7:57 for the finance, but I don't have.
Lori, is it possible for you to send her another link?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah,
That would-
not a problem.
That'd be fantastic. Okay, we're going to adjourn this meeting.
Lisa?
Thank you, guys.
Lisa, are you? I'm sending them to your Reno airport email.
That's fine. That's where I looked.
Is that what
That's
you're
where I'm
getting them?
looking.
Okay.
That's where
Okay.
I found the finance. Okay, I'll look for it.
Okay, I'll send it again.
Thank you.
All right, 20
Well-
after for the next meeting.
Okay, have a great day.
Thank you, Madam Chair.